In this video, we will do a computation of gross domestic product in equilibrium. So for computation of GDP, we first will determine the aggregate expenditure. I will write it AE, aggregate expenditure. We will write this aggregate expenditure, we will describe the aggregate expenditure as a function of the national income. I will denote the national income by notation Y. So aggregate expenditure is a function of Y, and the GDP in equilibrium is such is the value of Y such that we have aggregate expenditure equal to Y. So that will be our goal. Let's go over the aggregate expenditure. It is the sum of the household consumptions. I will describe it by C. Then the private investment made by all the businesses in the economy, plus the government expenditure, and then the last term being the net export, where net export is the difference between export and import. So let me write here, net export is export all the commodities exported from the country, and then we subtract all the goods imported into the country. The household consumption is written as sum of an autonomous consumption, I want to write it as A, plus the marginal propensity to consume multiplied by the national income. So let's assign some values. I want to take the value of A to be $200. Let's say the marginal propensity to consume is 0.90, which means the marginal dollar income generates a consumption of 90 cents. So given this, my autonomous household consumption turns out to be 200 plus 0.9 times Y. Now we will also have the additional information about the private investments. Let's say it is $200. The government expenditure $100, and for simplicity I will take net exports to be 0, which means the export and import balance out each other. With this information, the aggregate expenditure is the consumption, household consumption, plus the investment, plus the government expenditure, plus the net export. I can simplify it to be 200 plus 200 plus 100 makes it 500 plus 0.9 times Y. And in equilibrium, for the GDP computation, we must have the national income Y must be equal to the aggregate expenditure. So let's do this. Y equal to 500 plus 0.9 Y. One equation, one unknown we should be able to solve. And the way we will solve is, I take all the variables on the left hand side, constants on the right, so I need to move 0.9 Y on the right to the left. For that, I will subtract 0.9 Y from both sides of the equation, So what remains on the left hand side is 0.1 y minus 0.9 y is 0.1 y. On the right hand side I have 500. So to get the value of y, I will divide both sides by 0.10. I get y. I'll put a star because it is the national GDP in equilibrium to be 5,000. That's our answer. And I will also like to show another way, the graphical method to find out the national GDP in equilibrium. For this, I will draw a graph with national income on the horizontal axis, the aggregate expenditure on the vertical axis. It has intercept of 500, slope of 0.9, so that's the aggregate expenditure. And for finding out the equilibrium value of GDP, I will again draw a helping line passing through the origin with this 45-degree angle or slope of 1. The equilibrium GDP is obtained at the point of intersection of the helping line and the aggregate expenditure, which is here. So if you had drawn this graph to scale, it would show up as 5,000 as being the point of intersection. So y star turns out to be 5,000. Again, using the graphical technique which relies on the idea of helping line. And this is a good point to stop.